Welcome everybody to today's policy event, Citizen Science Across Europe. I would very much like to welcome you on behalf of the EU Citizen Science Project and would like to mention that today's event is part of a satellite event of the European Research and Innovation Days. Today we invited representatives of ministries of science across Europe and also representatives of local and regional levels. We would like to engage into a discussion on the added value of citizen science and its benefits for policymaking in Europe. So the main event of today, or the main aim of today, is to develop and also foster synergies and collaborations among policymakers that have an interest in citizen science. So together we would like to explore the current state of citizen science in Europe and also to dive deep into a discussion by presenting good practices, best practices, and also success stories of citizen science for policymaking on different levels. So I would very much engage and invite you to engage into the conversation today and invite you to become part of this discussion. And I would like to give you a small glimpse into what the EU Citizen Science Project is. So we are a project funded by the European Commission and have started our project in February in 2019. EU Citizen Science is the platform in Europe for citizen science, and we aim to share resources, knowledge on citizen science. In April last year, our platform was finally launched and we had a new release in September 2020, engaging with the European citizen science community, offering a place to foster discussions, share resources, and highlight the stories that citizen science is telling across Europe. So we are also offering training modules for the broader public and people interested in citizen science practitioners, and invite people to become part of the discussions in citizen science. So today in 2021, we are just about to add new training modules with exciting content and offering new training opportunities and room and space for dialogue and discussion. And today, we also would like to engage in a broader dialogue with policymakers, and I'm very excited about today's event and about all the exciting knowledge that we are getting to share, all the success stories and insights that we are about to see happening in a minute. And with this, I'm very happy to hand over to Cecilia Cabello from FICIT, who's also hosting today's event. Cecilia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Silke, and good morning to everyone. I'm really delighted to welcome you to an event like this. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your presence, for being here and for connecting. For those who are watching us from the YouTube streaming, I think this is very positive, as well as those that are in the Zoom webinar that I think are a little bit more closer. So welcome and good morning to everybody. As Silke mentioned, the EU Citizen Project is organizing this event thanks to the collaboration of Spain, Portugal, Germany, and the European Commission. From Spain specifically, I would just like to mention the organization has been done by the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology, FICIT, and the EU-Citizen Foundation. Both foundations strongly believe in the importance of strengthening and communicating this type of initiatives if we want to attract more participants in turn to citizen science and in complementary scientific and informative methodology. So this is why I think it's important. FICIT, which is the institution that I belong to, depends directly on the Ministry of Science and Innovation. And we develop together strategies to strengthen the links between science and society through actions that promote an open, inclusive science, scientific culture, and education, responding to the needs and challenges of the Spanish system of science, technology, and innovation. Our efforts highlights the importance of working hand in hand with policymakers to promote social and political change in research and innovation. We assure that one of the ways to achieve this is through citizen science, and that's why this is important for us, this event today. After this event, we hope to promote the interaction between these stakeholders, the policymakers and the citizens, and find solutions to improve this way of doing science and its benefits as a policy tool. For me and the organizing team, it is an honor to have the presence of this relevant panelist. I think we have a really, really interesting morning today. Our colleague Antonella, who is the EU-Citizen.Science project manager, will tell you more about the profiles. And thank you and welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Silke and Cecilia, for these very nice welcoming and opening words. It's my great pleasure to moderate this event today with Sticky Dots CEO Marzia Mazzonetto. We will start now the interactive session of this event, and we will listen to the presentation given by our invited speakers. Sven Schade, representing the European Commission, Carmen Castresana, representing the Spanish Ministry of Science and Innovation, José Paulo Esperança, representing the Portuguese Ministry of Science and Technology and Higher Education, Anne Overbeck, representing the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research. After each presentation, we'll have a 15-minute discussion with our invited speakers and panelists. We would like also to invite the audience to participate in this discussion. So if you have any questions, please share them in the Zoom Q&A chat or in the YouTube channel if you are there. Now it's my great pleasure to give the floor to Sven Schade, Scientific Policy Officer at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, who will give a presentation about the current state of citizen science across Europe. So Sven, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Antonella. I'm facing now challenges with sharing my screen, but I'm trying my very best to get this going.
Sure.
Of course, we did a dry run before, but it doesn't work anymore. I'm very sorry for that.
It's not
anyway,
a problem.
So let's not bother with it. Let's just go straight to the point. So basically, indeed, my name is Sven Schade. I'm working for the European Commission's Joint Research Center. And it's a pleasure to opening this first block of interventions with you. Basically, what I wanted to tell you about is two perspectives of looking into citizen science and policy. One of those is looking at citizen science for policy. So how can citizen science support policy making directly? The approach we look into this is a six-step process, looking into the provision of data, the provision of help of citizen scientists in the validation and quality assurance of data, and also in data analysis and interpretation, which are classical steps in any citizen science activity. But what is equally important is once this data is collected, so let's see data on biodiversity, on birds, on pollinators, or data on air quality and water quality, for us it's really of the utmost importance to connect this data also to policy making. So to feed this data as part of an evidence base that can be used for decision making by public bodies. So it's making this connection happen, but also to then provide feedback about the decisions that have been taken and to monitor the impact of a political decision if it really improved the current situation. And you can see these kind of contributions in a lot of different cases. So not only the birds and air and water quality I mentioned, but alongside a lot of different topic areas, for example, in the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals on life on water, life on land, climate action, and many more. In this respect, I invite you to look also at the European Commission staff working document of last year, which is explaining best practices and recommendations how to move forward to connect citizen science and environmental monitoring in a way to use the opportunities here. Then we have a second side of the same coin, and this is basically looking into policies that are supporting citizen science. So here we basically are speaking on open science policies as one example, which provides or open up scientific publications to the community, open up data to the community, but also are providing research funding such as Horizon Europe, where open science and the call for co-creation and co-design is extremely strong. A last part on this policy support to citizen science then covers the European Research Era, which also was published this year, highlighting the need to coordinate citizen science activities also between the different member states of the European Union. Last but not least, if we're looking at political support to citizen science, we should also touch the better regulation. So basically, how do public organizations interact with citizens and engage with them? And also here we have leading examples from environmental protection agencies foremost, how to engage with people, to collect their knowledge together and to act upon it. So basically, all these elements I was walking you through, citizen science to support particular policies and policies to support citizen science, they apply, of course, at the level of the European Union, but also at country level and regional and local level. Earlier this year, we published a report investigating how citizen science is perceived differently across Europe and which kind of approaches and strategies exist. And this was a work we did together with the citizen science community. And we actually found that citizen science is present in many countries, but the approaches are very different and very contextualized. So it really depends on the country and the culture, how citizen science is even termed, but also how it is supported within the country. And we see big differences from the north to the south and from the east to the west. So also here we see citizen science is getting more and more attention. However, it really always has to be considered also in a cultural context and be supported in a particular environment. To finish my intervention, I also want to highlight that we ask the members of the community, when talking about the support of citizen science, what tools are available to them. And one of the top reply was digital platforms to share data and knowledge. And I want to underline this particularly today because of the importance of the European Citizen Science platform that is developed by the EU-Citizen.Science project. But also to underline that at the same time, we don't only need the organization at European level, but also the organization at a more national level, also speaking national languages. And with this, I'm finished. I'm really sorry that I couldn't show my slides. I'm sure we can find a way to share them with you later on. I'm very much looking forward to the discussion we will have. And if you want to speak with me personally, you will also have as a possibility as part of the Research and Innovation Days in the house of the JRC in the village. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sven. There has been in the chat already a lot of interest towards the report that you have mentioned. So we have already shared the link to it so that people can download it. It's really nice to see that there is a lot of interest to have access to it. While we wait for more questions from participants, I actually wanted to ask you a couple of questions that, of course, are strongly related to the role and evolution that citizen science is having across Europe in general, and this is something we will dig deeper into a lot today, but also at the European level. So I would really like with you to dig a bit deeper into the potential future developments of citizen science at the European level. What do you think that we should expect according to you?
Thanks, Marzia. Yeah, indeed. I think I would expect three different developments. On the one hand, actually hand in hand, what is promoted also with Horizon Europe, I would see a closer integration of citizen science-based approaches with similar approaches, such as social innovation or multi-actor approaches, under the wider label of co-creation and co-design. So I think we should also have a more integrated view of citizen science in comparison to other approaches to engage with a rich set of stakeholders. I would also expect that we see a continuation of the leading role of environmental protection agencies in engaging in environmental issues, but also in issues, in topics related to human well-being and health, which we see increasing. I expect more discussions on national statistical offices and other parts of public administration, how to benefit from citizen science. I think this is something which is following, and we see a few championing countries here. And last but not least, I would also expect a replication and scaling and more research to see how a successful case from a certain local context or regional context could be taken up across Europe with due respect to the different contexts I was just mentioning. I think these are the three elements: more integrated, more scaling, and also a richer portfolio in terms of public administrations involved.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Sven, for sharing. And then also related to this, to more the European level, I think we have all noticed that citizen science popularity within European programs has been growing quite a lot in the past few years. So I would actually be curious to know, what do you think are the main reasons for its success?
Yes, indeed. Another good question, Marcia. Thank you. So, well, indeed, the interface and improving the interface between science and society has been on the agenda for 20 years. I think you can trace it back to at least 2001. And then more recently, after FP7 in Horizon 2020, we had the Science with and for Society program. We had lines on responsible research and innovation, and also a lot of support from the Earth observation calls very recently, where there was also a huge interest in contributing with citizen science projects. And we also see this mainstream request in Horizon Europe. So indeed, it is fair to say that we see more and more support of citizen science, which is fantastic. But the three main reasons I see, so let me again go for 3 points here. I think the first one is that the citizen science approach, that these approaches work. I think we really see the value of engaging with citizens in scientific research and use the results for policy. So there are a lot of impressive cases which piled up, and a clear reason it works. So it's certainly an area to invest on. The second part is that over the past, let's say 5, maybe more, maybe going back to the initiation of the European Citizen Science Association in 2013, the community got more and more organized. So there is much more interconnectivity within countries and across Europe, also internationally, which really pushes for more and more projects and proposals. And that is actually my third point. We also see an increasing request for these kind of projects. Just looking at the amounts of requests to the Green Deal calls, we also see that people are ready and striving to go for citizen science projects. So I think there is a need, so there has to be an answer to that, and it has to be more supported. What will be very important is now how to continue with this success. And as I said before, I think it will be very important to take a more integrated view, to not only look at citizen science as citizen science, but see how it embeds with a wider picture, and also look towards replicability and scaling.
Yes. Thank you very much, Sven. I'm now going to open up the conversation to also questions and curiosity from participants. Of course, we have several invited panelists with us today, so I also invite them to join the conversation. We definitely have time for at least one more question, and I would like to actually go straight into an interesting question that we have from Dilek Frezel from IASA, who is actually asking whether, Sven, you can actually maybe elaborate a bit more on the SDG agenda and strategy of the European Union.
Okay, so also there, in general, the SDG agenda, of course, is set on a global level. And then we see this going through, propagating through regional and national levels. And it's particularly in the framework of the SDGs, I think we see a lot of positive cases where citizen science already contributes to SDG monitoring. More things are now coming up on marine litter, but already classically, if we look at biodiversity indicators at a European level, the bird indexes for both agriculture and forestry birds are still the most substantial indicator on biodiversity, which is used for SDG monitoring directly. And this exists since 1986, I believe it started. So it's really, we see these cases existing. And we now see work of IASA and colleagues more and more helping, using more data, making more knowledge available for monitoring the SDGs. What should be also considered, and again linking to the agenda of the open science element in Horizon Europe, but also more generally, is to how to use these citizen science data and the knowledge created for local action. So it's a phrase, think global, act local, but really using the data and the knowledge and the motivations created by citizen science to make difference at the local level. I think this is something which is yet to come, and it fits very well with the overall European strategy on co-design and co-creation in science.
Thank you, Sven. We definitely have time for one more question, and maybe this can be also open to. We also have other representatives from the European Commission within our panelist, and one of the participants is actually wondering whether there would be ways to make a stronger alignment and collaboration or networking between open government and its goals, so mainly co-creation, participation, accountability, and transparency, which we know are very important goals for citizen science, but not only. They seem to have quite a lot of relevance overall in the Horizon Europe program, and then also something like Civitech, the public sector innovation, evidence-informed policymaking, OECD, etc., better regulation, and the citizen science sphere. So basically, really, how to finding ways to join forces, as there are lots of similar goals shared, join forces towards better achievement of this. And I see already 2 hands raised, but I confess I don't know who raised his hand first. So I'm going to start with Lyndon, if that is okay. And I apologize if that was not the order.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, it's great to be here with you.
Maybe before giving your answer, and this also for all panelists, if you can just quickly introduce yourself, that would be great. Thank you.
Of course, Masha. Yes, I'm Lyndon Farrer. I work in the Open Science Unit of DG Research and Innovation. Very pleased to be here with all the panelists and all the speakers. Regarding this question about bringing citizen science alongside these other approaches, open government, co-design, co-creation. I think this is what we're doing. This is what we're trying to do with our approach to open collaboration amongst different knowledge actors as part of open science. For us, citizen science is a practice of science. It's perhaps undervalued, perhaps in the science system. It's overlooked. It's not utilized enough, and that's why there's a lot of EU added value in putting the emphasis on this. In the future, it's going to be part, in Horizon Europe, it's going to be considered part of the methodology and therefore evaluated under the excellence criterion. That doesn't mean that every project needs to do co-creation, of course, far from it, but applicants should give a justification about whether they think it isn't relevant, or whether they think it's relevant. The evaluators would be looking for quality practices. But part of this approach is also trying to bring different actors together. It builds on responsible research and innovation. It's about bringing the quadruple helix together in different actions. It's not just about having citizens and researchers doing citizen science on their own. Ideally, we'd also try to bring public authorities in there, SMEs. We'd hope that there would be other kinds of outcomes, consumer changes, educational outcomes, and things like this. So we're looking at all areas of science, all areas of research and innovation where citizens and end users can contribute alongside these other actors. So we know that the environment is a very well established area, and it's very important to continue focus on this, but we also keep this open, and you can see this in many of the projects, for instance, in the Science Within For Society part of Horizon 2020, where we have some really outstanding projects across all areas of research and innovation. So I hope I've helped provide a bit more background on that element. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda, for your very clear explanations. Luigi, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Marcia, and thanks, Lyndon and Sven, for your introductory words on the role of the Commission in this relation between policymakers and citizen science. I'm Luigi. I'm leading innovation at Earthwatch in Oxford, and I'm also coordinating the MIX project that is about measuring the impact of citizen science. My comment at this point, after the intervention of the Commission, is well, really, I wanted to comment that I was very pleased by seeing the new work program of Horizon Europe, because sometimes we are used to complain about the lack of funding, but now we can really see, as has been just commented, that citizen science is really embedded in the work program as we have never seen before. So at Earthwatch, we were analyzing the calls that have been published recently, and we identified 43 calls in which citizen science can really have a big role. Let's say that the keywords, the key expression that we found are, for example, engagement and empowerment of citizens, civil society, and end user. So even if citizen science is not maybe mentioned explicitly, when we talk about engagement and empowerment of citizens, well, we are talking about citizen science. So I invite everybody to look for this kind of keywords to identify calls in which citizen science can have a big role. So I think, and these represent millions and millions that the Commission is investing in citizen science related or activities where citizen science can have a role. So I think that I'm sure that we will talk about, as Sven was saying, what can citizen science do for policymakers. But I think that in general, a couple of actions that we really should think about is how can we communicate better that there is this kind of funding available, because sometimes it's not easy to communicate the possibility. So this diffusion of information towards the potential stakeholders that can apply for this cause. And also, the last thing is, let's take into account that there are a lot of situations in a lot of countries in which sometimes English is a barrier. Yesterday, I was in Hungary, and I was participating in citizen science activities there for our project. And the conversation was not in English, was in Hungarian. So there are a lot of organizations that are local organizations that can be part of larger projects, but sometimes they need an initial communication that is adapted to the local setting, the local context. So this effort in communication needs also to be adapted to a lot of areas of Europe, especially Eastern Europe, where citizen science is a new thing, and we need to find a way to approach them and to reach them efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, definitely, Luigi, lots of opportunities for mainstreaming citizen science in the coming years. I'm really sorry, I know there are more questions, but I would really like to move on to the next speaker. Nonetheless, I'm pretty sure that we are going to address at least part of these questions in the coming talks. We are definitely going to bring examples, and we are definitely going to share more information about collaboration between policymakers and the citizen science community. So stay tuned. Even if we're not addressing these questions right away, there will be a lot of food for thoughts on these two topics that you would like to know more about. So I'm going to hand over to Antonella to introduce the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marzia, and also thank you, Sven, Linden, and Luigi, for making the discussion so interesting and lively so far. Now it's my great pleasure to give the floor to Carmen Castresana, who is General Director of Research Planning, the Spanish Ministry of Science and Innovation. Carmen will give a presentation about promoting citizen science through the launch of national plans for funding citizen science projects. Carmen, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning. I'm trying to share the screen.
Thank you.
Can you see? Yes.
Yes, excellent.
Okay, so it works, fortunately. So, good morning. My name is Carmen Castresana. As is written in the presentation, I am the General Director of Research Planning I've been working in the ministry since 1 year and a half. Before moving to the ministry, I was leading a research group for many years. So I was doing research, and now I'm moving to organize research and planning the near future for the next years. During the time I've been working here in the ministry, so I have been mainly involved in the development, in the putting in paper what we want to do in the next 7 years. So it's the National Strategy for Science, Technology and Innovation. And within this strategy, of course, we have contemplated the importance of the citizen science. So there are many things in the strategy, but one is citizen science. As you know, the Spanish Ministry of Science and Innovation has been one of the partners in the project for EU-Citizen.Science, and the ministry participated within this project through the participation of two foundations. One is FECIT, and you already heard the introduction by Cecilia Cabello. So one is FECIT, and the other one is EU-Citizen.Science, and both foundations has been working in this project, not only in this project, but in many other activities that we have been doing during the last years. In this project, we are mainly focusing, we mainly work in the work packages 4, which is focused in the awareness and engagement of public and policy makers. And what we want to do in this program is to use policy and ministry networks to promote the activities in citizen science, and also we want to share this information with other partners from other countries. Of course, we know that each country has its own interests and idiosyncrasy and the way of doing things, but we think we have been working in this issue for many years now, and we can show and share some of the things we have been doing. So we are completely aware that the government support is a key factor for the success of citizen science projects, and for that, together with the Foundation FECIT and EU-Citizen, we have developed an action plan that has been going on for the last few years, 2017, 18 and 19, where we have really set up a number of activities. We have organized 8 thematic meetings in different issues in different places around Spain, and we have also have organized a first international forum on citizen science in May 2019 that was held in Madrid with more than 100 attendees. This concerning we've been doing in the last few years, but as I told you before, we started to focus in this issue many years ago, and in 2007 we started to launch grants through the work of FECIT, grants for support projects focusing the dissemination and communication of science. These projects were open to universities, companies, foundations, public research institutes, and so these organizations applied to these projects. When the final idea is, of course, to bring science, technology, innovation results and projects to the citizens, and to show or to give them some tools to get closer to scientific technology progress and to improve the education in these issues, the education of society. In 2016, these two foundations launched an observatory of citizen science in Spain that has been very successful because they present a report every year to inform the society about what is going on in this issue in Spain. So in addition to this general programs to support and to improve the dissemination communication, because we really believe that it's important that the citizens know as much as possible about what's going on in science and innovation in Spain, and also finally they could participate in decision makings. So we have focused also in some specific issues regarding to science, citizen science, and so we have a program which is focused and devoted to this issue in particular specifically, and we have a call for projects. And so in the last year, 2020, the call is being almost finished, and it's going to be, we have a provisional resolution, and we found, which we're happy to know, that we have improved the number of applications and also the number of projects that has been support and probably will be funded. So that's, I think, one of the issues that we think we should be pushing, and we will keep pushing it. As I told you before at the beginning of the I didn't pass the so it's what I was just telling, that we have a submission that grew 21% with regarding the previous year, and so we are really very happy with these results. And I finished my presentation by telling you that we have the intention and the interest of pushing this issue forward, and we have, as I told you before, we've been working in the development of the strategy for the next science, technology and innovation for the next year, where we really contemplate the development of new activities and process to incorporate citizen science in the regular projects that are going on in our country. I want to finish now, and I thank you for the organization of this event. Let's see if we have any point to discuss or any question that I can answer. So I think in the audience is FECIT and Universities, that are the two foundations that have been really doing all this wonderful work, so they could also join me for answering the questions if you think it's necessary. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carmen, for sharing. It is really impressive to hear about how much support Spain is providing to citizen science. We have a few questions for you, but may I kindly maybe ask you, if you wish so, to stop sharing your screen, unless you think that it's relevant to have this slide with us. Great, thank you, so we can see you well. So while we again wait for some questions or also contributions from the panelists, I have actually a curiosity that I would like to ask you about. So can you tell us a bit more about which type of evaluation criteria do you use to select projects which are being or going to be funded?
So I think in general our evaluation criteria is the general criteria that we follow for any kind of projects. In what I'm trying to say is that important is the quality of the project. The main thing is the quality of the project. Of course, we have to know that this project is focused in a different topic, in a different application of different things, and so we have to take this into account. But we have a number of markers that we have to evaluate. So we make a panel, like we always do for any kind of project, where we have a representative of the science and innovation, and also we have experts in the communication and dissemination of results. So we have a panel more or less that we organize for any kind of project, but we have also, of course, like any other project, experts in the issue that we want to evaluate. So we evaluate the quality of the project, the relevance of the scientific and technical program, the structure of the program, the responsibility, the budget or whatever, and the participation of audience and strong. I mean, we really focus very much in what is the project going to provide for communication of the work is going on in the project to society. So the main thing is to communicate what is going on in science. I mean, one of the main criteria, which is make a very important difference with regarding other projects, is the communication. So the main goal is to communicate science, and depending on the audience, so if you want to go to schools or you want to go to what kind of people, so you have to adapt your communication to the audience that is going to listen or is going to participate in the activities that you are proposing. So that's the level of communication, and the tools for communication is one of the important criteria in the but anyhow the quality of the project, the idea that is improving the is proposing in the project is also very important.
Thank you very much, Carmen. And I would really be curious to know more also about how these different ways of supporting citizen science work in different countries. So actually, I see, Aurelia, that you have raised your hand. So thank you very much for joining the conversation, and welcome. So if you can just briefly introduce yourself, and then thank you very much for taking part.
Thank you very much, Marcia. Hello, everybody. My name is Aurelia Pavelaiki, and I work as a national contact point for Lithuanian Research Council. So I kind of represent Lithuania in that way, and I work with widening and era programs in New Horizon Europe, as well as other horizontal policies, and citizen sciences being one of those at the heart. It's kind of a common and is at the same time question to Carmen. So citizen science is very much at the infancy in Lithuania. Just in 2020, we established the Citizen Science Association, that EU-Citizen.Science is one of the partners. And it was interesting to hear how Carmen is talking about the strategy at the very political level. So I would be interested to hear more how the strategy is being implemented at the institution. You know, it's great that we're having a strategy, financial support, and the budgetary allowances to implement citizen science for the project and Horizon Europe program, but at the same time, but it has to be affected. The universities, institutes have to take it on board in order to progress it. So I would be very interested to hear from Carmen if she has any feedback from the institution she worked with, how they're taking this strategy on board.
I can tell you that in the last years, it has becoming very important that the institution themselves. So it's not really that from the government we are really asked them to do it, but it's getting very important that you need to have a kind of service or department, small department or person working in an institution to do the dissemination of the resource. So I think is getting just by nature incorporated in the institution. So it's very common now that you have a person or a couple of persons working in this direction, and these persons are responsible of first the web pages of the institution, whatever they really want to show to the society, and also to apply to these programs that they are going on in these foundations. So it's something that is becoming common, but by itself. So we really didn't have to, but you feel that you have a good institution and you need to have this kind of people working in and it has to be a specialist. So I mean, of course you can be learning during the time, but you really have to be focused in how you can show to the society. That's a very important issue. So the web page has to be easy to follow, has to be easy to find things. So you have to really concentrate on how you can show to the society what are you doing. And this time during the pandemic has been very critical, how science has been very important for society, and how important it is that the society can really understand something that we do in the ministry or in the laboratory. It has to be something easy to follow, something attractive, and if I really believe that if you tell to the people something in an easy way that you can understand, then the idea they will like to learn and they will like to enjoy. So all the institutions, not all, but the main institution, they really have a small department for communication and dissemination of the results.
So it's a culture change, isn't it? So
Yes.
what we're talking about today, we're changing the culture from European level, political level, then going into the national level, and then institutional level, changing the culture, working with academics and
Yes.
researchers.
Yes.
Thank you.
It is the good one, because I mean, it really is going to stay. I think it will stay.
There is actually an interesting question in the chat that actually relates to this concept of it will stay. But first, I would like to give the floor to Dan. Welcome. Thank you for joining this discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Dan Smits. I work for the Dutch Ministry of Science, and I'm a policy officer that works with open science as well. And just to add on to the discussion and the nice things that Carmen has just presented to us, I just wanted to highlight 3 examples that we have in the Netherlands to just foster citizen science on the national level. I think those are nice to mention, and also if you want to get in touch with me to talk about it in a bit more further, then be welcome to just get my contact details. Yeah, what we do in the Netherlands is that the Dutch Research Council that distributes the research funds in the Netherlands actually has a strategic plan up to 2022, in which researchers can really request dedicated funds for citizen science. They can actually get up to 15,000 euros per year per researcher. And also I would like to mention the Dutch National Research Agenda program, which is really dedicated to citizen science, because when it started in 2016, basically questions were asked to the public what kind of research questions they wanted to be conducted, and yeah, that's really a nice example of how we actually try to tie a scientist to the public, and yeah, it's really a dialogue into this research on how science should be conducted with the help of the public. So yeah, that's actually what I wanted to mention, and also I'm willing to get in touch with anyone that is interested in these examples.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. I think this, what you just mentioned, also addresses one of the questions that we have in the chat, which is about criteria, ways to actually directly involve citizens from the beginning in the development of projects. So here we have definitely a really interesting example of this. I see more hands raising. I just also wanted to share an interesting question that we have in the chat in case anyone also would like to address it before we move on to the next presentation, and that is about the continuity of the project that are being supported. So for example, establishing links between national or European support systems, but also how to guarantee that they are not just spot on and that there is a long-term support or evolution of projects. I would also in the meantime like to welcome Adrien Pascus, who has raised his hand. So welcome and thank you for joining us today. We are happy to listen to your contribution.
Thank you for the invitation. Can you hear me? Good?
Yes, we can hear you well. Can you just very briefly introduce yourself?
My name is Adrien Pascu. I work from Ministry of Research in Romania. And actually, I think is a very good point you raise concerning the citizen science and the benefits for policy making. And this is a good opportunity to present good practices for our countries. For example, I have in mind 2 examples. For instance, doing research midnight in Romania is a DoReMi Romanian project coordinated by University CUZA of Iași. It involves 15 universities and research institutes on 8 main cities, Romanian cities, covering various topics in the field of science. And I think was a very successful initiative, which have impact on our citizen. The aim is, of course, to raise awareness on importance of promoting research, and of course to encourage young people to have to follow a professional career in research. And this is a very well-known initiative around the citizen in my country. Is connected to European Researchers' Night. And the second example is a recent one at the level of Association of Astronomers Without Borders, connected to International Astronomical Search Collaboration by NASA, and they are involved in an asteroid search campaign. Here we have example from Astronomic Observatory of Galați. Galați is a big city next to the Danube Delta in Romania, and many students are interested in this event to discover new asteroids. I think this is another example. And I think the aim is to raise awareness, as I said, and networking, and definitely citizen science become more and more important issue and topic for policy making. Thank you for this.
Thanks to you. It's actually really nice and interesting to hear so many experiences from different countries. It feels a bit like traveling, even if we're all in front of a Zoom screen. So I'm really enjoying this conversation. We're going soon to move on to the next speaker, but I see, Marjan, you have your hands raised. So we're really happy also to hear your thoughts before we welcome the next speaker. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Marcia. So yes, I'm Marjan van Mierlo. I work in DGRTD together with Lyndon, but I'm more on the environmental observation side, and in that sense also more involved in citizen observations and that particular part of citizen science. As Lyndon has mentioned, because you were asking about continuity, Marcia, so I was just wanting to add something on that. As Lyndon has mentioned, Sven has mentioned, we have been doing quite a bit on citizen observations already from, I think, the 7th framework program onwards into Horizon 2020, and we will continue into Horizon Europe to do so. So in that sense of continuity, yes, we are making sure that we follow up on the parts where we haven't invested enough in to get the barriers out of the way for working well with citizen observations, both in the sense of collecting data on the one hand, but also empowering citizens on the other hand. But maybe even a more important thing here, and that's why I actually wanted to take the floor, is that we've recently had a citizen observation project called We Observe asked to make a roadmap, and the roadmap consists of recommendations on the one hand, but also gap analysis and pathways to follow. And I will put the link to the roadmap in the chat in a moment, so everybody could visit that. But I think also if you talk about continuation, following the recommendations of this roadmap in concerted action, so not only from the side of the Commission, but also other parties involved in citizen science, I think that will also lead to some continuity, because there are really recommendations for sustainability in there. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation. Thank you for giving me the floor.
Thank you very much, and don't hesitate to also share if there is any reference that you would like to share in the chat. I'm sure that our participants would also be really happy to have access to it. There are some really interesting questions in the chat. I also invite panelists, if you wish, so you can also directly provide some answers directly in the Q&A window. We really have to, unfortunately, move on to the next speakers, but we will make sure to provide questions to all the speakers. I would like to would like to thank a lot Carmen. I know that there has been a lot of work recently that has been done in Spain to incorporate citizen science in the Spanish strategy for science, technology and innovation for 2021 to 2027. And we have heard a bit today about what is going to come up next. So if you have any closing remarks, please don't hesitate to share with us before we move on to the next speaker.
No, I don't think anything to add. So I was very happy to participate, and I like to hear all the things. And I think we really have to make all together an effort to keep supporting this discipline, because it's really improving and it's getting more and more important, and we should really support this type of activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carmen. And I think these kind of events are really interesting and useful in this sense, also to give visibility to the efforts that are being done at local, national and European level. Thank you. And I'd like to hand over again to Antonella so that you can introduce our next speaker.
Thank you very much, Marcia, and also Carmen, for your wonderful presentation. And our contributors, was wonderful to listen to the experience shared from Lithuania and the Netherlands, Belgium, and Romania. So it's now my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker. I'll give you the floor to José Paulo Esperança, who is Vice President of the Foundation for Science and Technology at the Portuguese Ministry of Science and Technology and Higher Education. And José, he gave a talk about overcoming the barriers to citizen science. José, the floor is yours.
Good morning. I'm very honored to be in this meeting, and I will try to share my screen. And
yes, please.
I'm trying to find the presentation that I would like to show to you. I don't know if you can you see my presentation now?
Not at the moment.
Wow. Then I have to get out. Is it working?
Not really.
So I'll try to. I really would like to show it to you, but I'm having some difficulties.
Let us know if we can help you anyhow. Before we made a test and it worked properly, so I'm sure we are going to fix it.
Is it visible now?
No.
So I will try to. Share screen.
Yes, the green button, share screen, and then you should select the window you would like to share with us.
It's not working.
Yes, it's working. Yes, now we can see your presentation, and you can launch.
Visible?
Yes, wonderful. You can launch the presentation mode, and we will be all set.
Okay. Is it working?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much again. Sorry for this little difficulty. What I would like to tell you about is about the situation of citizen science in Portugal and how this movement has evolved. Portugal is very much committed to the two core objectives of citizen science, contributing to sustainability through biodiversity and citizen engagement, bringing citizens at large to cooperate with professional scientists and researchers. So citizen science is also called crowd science or community science or voluntary monitoring, network science. These are definitions that have been also been designated. And Europe at large has been very much engaged in this process. So we have the ECSA, European Citizen-Science Association, or movements like DITO, doing it together science, coordinated by Citizen Science at UCL London, Butterfly Conservation, and many other movements. So I would like to discuss a little bit about education for engagement, action that has been going through, and overcoming barriers. So we had, this is a relatively recent phenomena, which was triggered by several meetings, like one in 2018 in the Thalia Theatre, which is really close to the Ministry of Science and Technology, and there was a second meeting of Citizen Science, which in Portuguese is Ciência Cidadã. These were important meetings, and there has been a strong engagement by universities and research units all over the country, and with much interest from the public in general, and the active participation of citizens in general. There was a recent workshop on citizen science, and there is a movement called Ciência Cidadã with this logo that you can see here, which is very, very active. I would like to give you a brief overview of the activities that have been going on, which concern many significant interests from the population at large. One is invasoras, which is about invading species, like trees that were not originally from Portugal, which are very dangerous because they are prone to severe fires, and you know fires are a very big concern. Forest fires are a very big concern in Portugal in summertime. Another one is about waste around our beaches. It's lixo marinho, and it has indeed engaged a very big part of our population. But perhaps the most active initiative is called Biodiversity for All, which really has covered a number of different activities, which I will show in a minute. And there is another one about, it's called Gel à Vista, which is about jelly animals on the ocean, which are not so pleasant. Some are really dangerous. There is one with a Portuguese name, which is the Portuguese man of war, which is poisonous. Luckily, it's not so common in our coast. It's very common in Australia, for instance, and so it is an observation of all these kind of not so pleasant inhabitants of our coast, and it has indeed led to several research papers based on this data collection. So it does help scientists that many people are contributing to collecting data. So Biodiversity for All has covered a number of rare or not so rare animals that are very interesting. Well, nowadays with a mobile phone, you can collect lots of information, and this is very helpful. So we have about different bugs and small animals. We have also researched some of the most pristine areas of the country, like river valleys and areas like that. This we have here is Val do Tua. It's one of the nicest rivers in Portugal, and we have been monitoring the different species that live there. Another one which is very interesting, and luckily the populations are increasing, is about dolphins and whale watching. And as the waters get cleaner, and there are more of these animals living in several of Portuguese rivers, and their observation is very important for knowing the population's evolution and the habits. So this is about the data collection on waste on beaches. And of course, there is a movement which is very coordinated and for which the open science platform from Figueira de Castelo Rodrigo, who is engaged in this program, is very active. So it's called Abeirar, and it covers 15 municipalities of the interior of Portugal, center north of Portugal, close to Spain. It is very interesting because it's also one of the areas with a very, very strong biodiversity, and it's very interesting in that area. Another one is about the night butterflies, and a slightly different aspect is about the Museum of National Museum of Natural History and Science in Porto, which has a fantastic collection. One of the aspects is about the drawings, because this interest in science is very old, and the seafarers and the first navigators were very fascinated by different species. So we have interesting drawings of at the time where mobile phones were not existent, and not even cameras. So these drawings are truly inspirational about natural species, and there is a strong effort also in that area. So, for instance, there is a newspaper from the late 19th century, which has lots of beautiful pictures and drawings that are now being collected to collect information in this area. There is also a scientist called Sampaio, Mr. Sampaio, who has lots of interesting registrations in that museum. And Desmond Morris has donated a very important collection to this museum, which is now being worked. And of course, it's fascinating for attracting the people at large, not only scientists. And indeed, that can their support can be really very important. I would like just to complete by mentioning that science and engagement of people at large is very important for enhancing trust in science. And we live in a moment, in a period in which these aspects are truly important. Just to give you an idea, the COVID crisis triggered a level of cooperation between research units and laboratories and society at large, both corporations and individuals, that had never been seen before. Indeed, the PCR tests, protection equipment, ventilators, all of these products that were developed in a very, very short time really counted on the support of individuals, corporations, and laboratories. Altogether, they managed to do fantastic work and cooperating with each other. But we do know that some people don't want to be vaccinated or fear, aspects that are very important from a collective perspective. So citizen science can be extremely important in engaging people. In Portugal, we do have an institution which is called Ciência Viva, Life Science, that is extremely active at attracting the interest of mostly young people for science. So my last brief note would be about how can we overcome barriers to more active and committed citizen science. Of course, financing is an idea that always comes to our mind, and indeed it's very important, but it's scarce. And I think it cannot be only public effort. It has to be private. And we need to have more philanthropists and more individuals and corporations that to donate for citizen science. It would be very important. We need more visibility. So conventional and social media together can play an important role. And I think news in this area can be extremely interesting. And occasionally we see them, but we need a more systematic treatment of this issue. We need prizes for stronger commitment. This is very good for raising funding and also for raising visibility. We need better citizen training. So people need to be more educated. It's not just pick an app and start seeing which plant we are seeing, but or which bird is singing. But we need more information about this to really make better use. And we need stronger connection to research units and infrastructures. Of course, that's definitely the important issue. And I think that when we have a big shock like we had with the COVID crisis, further enhancement of this cooperation can be indeed brought together. I would like to say that I used the information from CBU, from the University of Porto, and from the Open Science platform from Figueira de Castelo Rodrigo, and I'm very grateful for the support I got for the, collecting some information and data on this regard, and I will be fully open for questions or issues that you wish to raise. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, José Paulo, and thank you for sharing such a long list of really, really interesting examples from Portugal, but also to make links with the current situation that we are facing with COVID-19. That is also really important. We definitely I have a curiosity about whether you see a direct connection. So you have mentioned some barriers that needs to be overcome when supporting citizen science. Is there any examples? So within the experiences that you have shared with us from Portugal, is there anything else you would like to highlight in terms of how this project, how these initiatives really contribute to overcoming these barriers?
Yes, there are many examples that could be mentioned out of the ones I have shown, but there is another one that I do remind, and I know several interesting details, which is about, it's a program that actually was launched in Germany and was very inspirational, called the Plastic Pirates. It's about collecting data on plastic contamination in rivers. So it's very interesting. It has engaged especially secondary school students in many places. And so what is the important thing is that there is water collection, some collection of samples that have then to be analyzed in laboratories to really measure, because we are speaking of microparticles of plastic contaminants. And then one issue that comes along is who is going to finance the time that labs are going to use on this activity. And that's why financing is, of course, very important also in this area. But the fact that these problems arise is already very positive, because indeed people are aware of the contribution that the participation of population at large can make to really get systemic information and treatment of those data, and how cooperation can be enhanced.
Thank you very much. There are some really interesting questions, but also it's really nice to see how almost live when you mention an example. So you just mentioned Plastic Pirates, and colleague panelists and attendees are already sharing links in the chat. So it's one of really nice features of doing these events online is to have this interaction that happens really nicely. Just one maybe last question for you, and then I would really like also to move on to our last speaker for today. Do you have the feeling that actually strengthening, so we have addressed already this a bit also with Sven and other panelists, but does it look like strengthening the connection between citizen science and its contribution to SDGs can also help overcoming these barriers?
Definitely, I do believe that citizens at large are very sensitive to that issue. Of course, we would like to. Plastics is just one example of a dramatic crisis that really is of much concern to citizens in general. And of course, scientists also can come forward with interesting solutions. There are many things moving forward in which we can replace plastics with alternative materials, or having biodegradable plastic. So I would say that hard scientists, professional scientists, of course, can come with solutions, and the amateur scientists, citizens in large, would definitely love to get engaged and to join the party in helping in solving those issues. So SDG goals are very precise and very clear guidelines that really can help both parties.
Definitely. Thank you very much. I know a lot of panelists can probably relate to these examples and these points that we have just raised. We will have more time for question and answers and conversation, I promise. I just would like to give the floor right away to Antonella so that she can introduce our last speaker for today, and then we will pick up on all the very interesting questions that are in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcia, and also José, for your wonderful presentation and this discussion. So it's my great pleasure now to give the floor to Anne Overbeck, who is Policy Officer for Citizen Science at the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research. And Anne will give a presentation about science for the people, by the people, policy instruments to anchor citizen science in research and society. And the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for giving me the chance to talk a little bit about what the German Ministry of Education and Research has done in the realm of citizen science in the last years and where we are headed now. And the plastic pirates will come up as well in my presentation. I think it's a really good example of how collaboration across borders can happen in the field of citizen science. Let me say a few words first on why our ministry is focusing on citizen science, because I think it's important to recall sort of the motivation behind why we are pursuing this. So for one, it's really important to have this connection, to have this dialogue between science and the general population and civil society to increase the societal relevance of research and research policy. And also to allow science to have access to the knowledge of the many and to enrich innovation cycles by drawing on the creative potential of citizen knowledge. I think everything it's making research policy and research better, and it can broaden the horizon of either side and the process. I was really pleased to hear the Dutch research agenda mentioned just briefly in one of the previous statements, because next year our ministry is really going to focus on citizen input. We are going to do a similar process. We're going to go out and ask the German population to ask questions to science and to sort of take this as a starting point for 1 year of dialogue, to create an agenda paper at the end of the year, and to do small citizen science projects throughout that year. So 2022 for our ministry will really be a year of participation. But now let me take a quick look to the past, because we have heard before that citizen science has been expanding very rapidly over the past 10 years, and we can say that for Germany as well. We started in 2013 with, and since then we have done sort of 3 steps in the development of citizen science policy and also funding of citizen science activity. We started in 2013 with the Green Paper Citizen Science Strategy for Germany 2020, and we created the platform Bürgerschaften Wissen as a central network for citizen science activities in Germany. And this has really developed from there. Currently, the Green Paper is being re-examined and turned into a white paper that's which also shows how much the scene has grown. It's a process that has developed independently from our ministry, and the white paper will be, I hear, will be finished by the end of this year. So we started from the strategic with this strategic focus to create this green paper and to also create the network with Bürgerschaften Wissen. But then we also moved on to get into the funding and created the first funding guideline, in the project ran from 2018 to 2020. There was 13 projects and from a very wide range of disciplines that were very useful in creating public attention towards the topic of citizen science. And since then, things have really expanded from there. So we're now at a stage where we have very diverse projects and very diverse funding roads or routes that we are taking. So we addressed the legal issues behind citizen science, because that's something that institutions often face, questions of intellectual property right, questions of insurance, all those kinds of things that are very much on the practical side of citizen science projects. So we funded the guideline for that, done by the Museum for Natural Science in Berlin. We supported the SDGs, have been mentioned in previous talks, and we funded the Citizen Science Festival to go along with the SDG and Citizen Science Conference in the fall. Last year, I'm going to just show you, they see there the plastic pirates. So we are also funding broad initiatives that are sort of that have a rather low level of intensity, of work intensity for the general public, but are sort of designed to really make the access to citizen science easy and have to sort of low level first contact base. So another international project is the Expedition Erdreich, which sort of latches on to the TBAC index that has been around in Austria and I think England and other countries that deals with quality, this climate research and the quality of Earth structures. And we also started a second funding guideline this year with an increase in funding, and we also made a couple of other changes, and that will be sort of my final comments, because now I've shown you sort of how the field expanded, but of course we are not done. There's still a lot of things to think about and to expand on. And one of the things that is concerning us right now is how to strengthen the citizens' perspective. As a Ministry of Education and Research, of course, traditionally we come from the perspective of science, and sometimes it happens that you sort of lose sight of what the civil society aspect and the civil society needs are in such projects. So for this guideline, for example, we expanded the funding period to 4 years to accommodate the fact that it takes time to set up these collaborations, and that both sides need time to get to know each other and to establish solid working schemes and working mechanisms. And it was also possible here for the first time for institutions, civil society, NGOs to apply for this funding as the lead organizations. Before they could be adjacent to the process, but now they can be in the lead to sort of show the prominent position that these organizations are playing and have played in citizen science. And yeah, so we hope in the next, we are also thinking about sort of on the community level, on the city, on the city level, we're thinking about a competition, the city of citizen science, to establish something like that to strengthen local structures. So that is something, strengthening local structures and also strengthening capacity building is something we're working on, or we want to be working on in the future. Yeah, but this only as a very brief introduction to what we are thinking about, and I'm looking forward to your questions. And I'll stop my presentation so that I can see you.
Thank you very much, and that's also really interesting to understand more, know more about how the support for citizen science is happening in Germany. I like to open the floor for more question and answer with a question for you that actually I think also addresses some of the questions that we have been having in the chat from participants. So the question is really about focusing on a stronger role of civil society and citizens. So I would be curious to know whether you think that these policy instruments that you have just been referring to somehow lead to a stronger involvement of citizens as a way, of course, to make them feel also more actors of change, and also that they can be initiators sometimes of these processes themselves.
Thank you for that question. And I think in my last comments, I was already sort of heading towards that direction, because that is something which is a challenge, because most funding institutions and most funding ministries sort of come from an established system of how funding works and who our funding partners are. And with this last research guideline, we already took a step towards opening up these funding structures to new actors, to new players in the field. I think it's very important to sort of give, in citizen science, there's always a lot of talk about, meeting, in German say, of Augenhöhe, sort of meeting on the same level. Through these kind of design of guidelines, we hope to step up the role and the prestige of NGOs, for example, in these research teams. Also to with the extra year that we gave and other guidelines and that we will be establishing, we hope to give sort of the citizens a chance to join the process, both on an institutional level and with broad, sort of easy access nationwide projects like the Expedition Erdreich or the Plastic Pilot, to get an easy access to citizen science where you can see immediate results, where you know it's a low-level involvement, but you can see where your data is going, what your data is contributing to.
Thank you very much, Anne. I'm going to just head back to gallery view so that we can see again all the panelists that have been joining us today. And I would really like to open the floor to, I think, in overall, in the questions we have received so far from participants, there are definitely two key points that people would really like us to focus on. One is definitely about the long-term implementation of projects as well as policy instruments. So really looking beyond the duration of citizen science project or beyond the duration of a specific funding program. And then and then also eventually, I really liked the question in the chat that was also referring at whether there are also instruments that are not just about funding. So I think we have addressed this already a bit in previous conversations. So not just about giving financial support, but also leading to this shift, this mentality change, also this broadening the interest towards citizen science of all the communities, all the stakeholders that can be involved in it. So I would, of course, like to give the floor to Anne, if you'd like to address any of these points. And then I see some hands raised. So I would be really happy to keep our journey through Europe and have also other experiences.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I'll talk about the non-funding options of strengthening citizen science first. There we have been, I think, the establishment of Bürgerschaften Wissen as sort of this central platform in Germany for citizen science has been rather successful with that regard. So there is sort of a central place where guidelines are displayed, where advice can be given. We have over the past year, workshops have been established to that will train researchers on how to establish citizen science projects. So I think knowledge and capacity building are very important in sort of spreading the citizen science aspect. Also, on a more general note about science communication, this will also be strengthened in our funding structure, so that projects have to comment on how they want to sort of communicate their research. That doesn't have to be citizen science, but it can be citizen science. So with that kind of structures, we are hoping to strengthen citizen science as well. About the long-term establishment. Well, this is really difficult for a funding institution like the ministry, because most of our money goes to projects, as you, I guess as most of you know, and this is the same with the European Union. What I really think is really important are conferences like, I mentioned it before, the SDG conference last year, because it sort of elevates citizen science to a level of international discourse on international problems. And once you sort of manage to have citizen science and discourses like that, it will trickle down to more general, so that institutions will address the topic in their own policies and so on. So I think to make a citizen science part of these larger discourses is a very good strategy to establish it in a more permanent level on the level of institutions.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Anne. And I see also some of our panelists nodding. So I guess there is some sharing also between them about the suggestions that you have just given. I see 2 hands raised. So I would like to go first to Stella, who has been already wanting to contribute to the conversation since a little bit. So welcome and thank you very much for joining.
Good morning. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for inviting me to be a panelist for your discussions. Really interesting and very inspiring, I should say. Inspiring because I'm coming from the Economic Commission for Europe, from Statistical Division, and responsible and working with the SDGs. As a representative of official statistics, we are always excited and interested to see all the initiatives what happen. And of course, speaking about the official statistics that comes to support the SDGs, it has some quality features, some characteristics, but there are cases when, of course, more granularity is necessary. And in this case, the citizen science is both the solution and the challenge would be to cooperate with. At the same time, I can suppose that for the citizen science, the cooperation with the National Statistical Office can maybe help to overcome some of own challenges, like the funding, like the access to some tools, to some open source solutions. And but of course, there is it would be interesting to know if our speakers from the countries would have some specific cases or some examples where official statistics was really where citizen science and official statistics could go together. Not particularly for SDGs, but for any other area, because I can guess by this partnership, and we can ensure both the sustainability of both, but also the leverage both official statistics and the citizen science. And of course, it can help us to shift the mentality and the behavior of all involved parties and all the stakeholders. Thank you, and thank you. Very inspiring, and I was taking notes of every of the documents shared, and we will try to follow up somehow on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we're really happy to know that it was inspiring for you. I know José Rubio from the European Environmental Agency probably has some answers for you also about this question you just asked. But first, I'd like to give the floor to Ino Nottermans, who had raised his hand first, and then of course anyone who would like to contribute to addressing this point or the other points that have been asked in the chat. So Ino, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marta, and thank you very much also for being here. Ino Nottermans from Drift, zooming in from Amsterdam, working on policy masterclasses for citizen science to bring the policy and the citizen science world really together. So if you're really interested, I'll just share a link as part of the action project that we'll be doing also in the second half of this year. This Thursday already in the UK, but that's already, we already closed the registration. But if people, so I think I want to answer and respond to the question of what kind of other instruments are out there, I think, apart from funding. And I think we've been talking about many support mechanisms, mainly from policy to citizen science. And I think how I look at the interface is really to see it from both sides as a co-creative process, not only within projects, that you have a co-creative process with citizens, but that's also in the design and in the implementation and all the other phases, also between policymakers and citizen scientists, is important to have such a co-creative and co-creation process, and really trying to see the benefits also both for policymakers and citizen scientists to get the outcomes of the project that are important to both of them. And there are all kinds of support mechanisms, I think, apart from funding, but that require time and maybe some funding. That could spur these. So it's establishing all kinds of joint platforms that we already saw. So the Bürgerschaftenwissen, but also as joint platforms that are really targeted towards bringing policymakers and citizen scientists together. So therefore, I think it's also so important that we have such a conversation as today, because that is a platform that we can have these conversations. And both at local levels, but also on national levels and of course, European levels. And it's also about echoing what has been said before. It's really about fostering skills, developing these. And there, I think really the benefit of bringing citizen scientists and citizen science as a methodology in that can learn many policymakers to deal with a lot of challenges that they face. So really stressing what the benefit is of citizen science to policymakers is really important in that sense, because they are facing many problems and issues that are hard for them to solve because they are well not done they cannot be solved in the traditional way of that we do science, that we just monitor something, but we have to find out how to come up with solutions for these big societal problems, and where citizen science really can be a methodology to help out. So echoing many of the things that have been said, we need different skills and also the space to really embrace citizen science, and also take the space to experiment together, because it's also a new way also for both citizen scientists and policymakers to collaborate in that sense. Thank you very much for the floor.
Thank you, and thank you also for addressing this question that is really key to addressing various ways that can be used to really support citizen science. Definitely funding is a key one, a very, very important one, but probably funding alone would not be enough to lead to these shifts towards more and better citizen science all over. I see also José Rubio from the European Environmental Agency has raised his hand. So welcome. Thank you very much for joining today. And I see that as soon as you raise your hand, there were already questions for you in the chat. So yes. Real time.
Thanks a lot. Well, you have already introduced myself. I work at the European Environment Agency. I was not directly going to respond to Stella, but I was also going to mention an article that Sven has actually included in the chat, which I think is a very interesting article, which does this mapping between SDGs, indicators, and citizen science initiatives. In the context of our work of the EA, we see ourselves really more as a facilitator rather than running our own citizen science activities. We see also ourselves more using and trying to benefit as well from this movement, even if we are also managing an activity directly, which is Marine Litter Watch, which is also about litter pollution. I wanted also to mention in the context of how we also benefit from citizen sciences, and also linking to the question of Stella, is we have a very comprehensive set of indicators, environmental indicators. One is about the distribution frequency of species, which is basically we use basically data on butterflies and birds, and this is basically built on citizen science. And this is something that we have a very, very good time series, and it's been feeding into a number of reports that we have been publishing the last years, and also the State and Outlook of European Environment, the last one we published just before the pandemic at the end of 2019. Yeah, I wanted also to intervene to mention that the EA has been pretty much involved as well in the context of publishing the crafting together with the colleagues from the Commission, this staff working document that Sven mentioned about best practices of citizen science in the context of environmental monitoring. In that sense, we are also trying together with the network of environmental protection agencies, which has an interest group on citizen science with experts across Europe, to try to follow up the recommendations that are in the staff working document. We are trying to see and we try to discuss and analyze how we can actually integrate citizen science in the context of our mandate. It is been done in many examples. I would give several examples, several EPAs which are since many years working with citizen science, which have their programs, which have been successfully running their own activities, but in most of the cases collaborating with local actors in the ground. And this is, I would say, a perfect interface between the scientific work done in the context of citizen science and a policy impact, so to speak. In that sense, EPAs have a very important role to play. What also is, I think, is important in view of uptaking citizen science in this context, and we see that we need to work more, is to try to give more visibility to citizen science within our own institutions. There are, in every EPA I could see, and I speak out of my own experience, we have several champions, but then it's important to sell this news and to sell the story to colleagues at the thematic level and thematic departments, which are working with specific domains, which are working with environmental reporting, which are working in preparing specific thematic reports, to try to let's say, convince them or at least inform them about citizen science, about these success stories. And this is something that we like to focus in the future. In that sense, we link very much to the messages from the staff working document, try to create strategies at national level and try to promote more knowledge about these activities within our own institutions in order to ensure uptake. At least this from our side, what we think we should be doing, besides, of course, all what it's about the funding aspects, which are also very important indeed.
Yes. Thank you very much, José, and don't hesitate also to share in the chat any link that you might think could be interesting. Just a super quick question, as you were talking about the interest group of the European protection agencies, Rosa Arias from the Dinosus project was asking actually whether it's possible to join this group or also where we can find information about it. So don't
Yes, sorry, I was going to put it in the chat. In principle, the members are the experts from the EPAs, but of course we have guests, and we invite regularly experts from outside the EPAs to provide us with success stories, initiatives. We want to organize more webinars to invite externals. So indeed, it's a very open fora where we would like to, I mean, the experts from the EPAs want to learn what is outside in order to bring this message inside, and vice versa as well, to give some information about what are the plans on citizen science within the EPAs in order to see whether there are opportunities for collaboration. So I will put some links here so you can contact us for more questions.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting. We are well beyond the foreseen duration of this event, but I see there is still a lot of people, a lot of participants joining, and all our panelists are still there. So I would like to really thank you very much. I think we have, we really need to close the event soon, but I'm sure that there will be more opportunities in the future to exchange. We will make everything we can available. The recording of this event will also be made available. Thank you, and thank you very much for all our panelists, and I'm going to hand over to Francisco Sanz from the Ibercivis Foundation for some closing remarks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, as Marcia said, I'm the Executive Director of the Ibercivis Foundation in Spain. We are a foundation devoted to citizen science, and we are participating in this project in EU-Citizen.Science, mainly technically building the platform. And just you to know, we have created an infographics that you can see in this platform. This infographics is about citizen science, policymakers, impacts. So you can go to the platform and use it if you want. So I joined to Marcia to say thank you to everybody, especially all the speakers, all the panelists, all your contribution, and also thank you very much to all the people that are in YouTube, in Zoom. We will keep your contribution and we take advantage of this. So yeah, we think that is really, really important. This type of events really happens. I mean, here we can see citizen science from a very different perspective. At least for me, it's a very different perspective than my daily work. So we see the different approach that policymakers from different countries has regarding citizen science. Also, we do believe that citizen science is a very, very powerful tool, and it's a tool to take advantage of knowledge, of expertise and contribution for all European citizens. I mean, it's not only about democratizing science, that is also very important, and to take advantage of citizens in order to make a contribution to take a policy decision and so on. But it's also about harnessing all the potential that European citizens has. I think that we cannot spend all this talent that a citizen has. So what's next in this event? We are going to create a report with all your outcomes and with the final conclusion. And for sure, this report will be open to everybody. And you can use this information and all that happened in this event. And you can use all of this for your own projects, for your own advantage in your countries. But remember that cooperation between countries is essential for citizen science. So yeah, thank you everybody. Thank you again. Let's keep working. And Silke, if you want, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks so much, Fran. And in particularly thanks to everybody who joined the event today, to the fantastic panelists, for all the inspiring talks, insights, comments you made, and also, of course, to our participants of the seminar. I think that was a very inspiring event today. I think we all took home the message that citizen science is about knowledge sharing, about dialogue, exchange. That's what we did here today. I very much hope that this was the starting point for many follow-up discussions in the future, possibly also, again, using EU-Citizen.Science and everybody that joined forces today as a platform to provide opportunities and spaces for dialogue. I very, very much appreciated everybody here sharing openly their thoughts and also maybe critical thoughts, and would very much like to see you all again in future and another fantastic events. Thanks so much to everybody, and also last but not least, thanks to Sticky Dot and Antonella and Fran and the team in the background who so brilliantly organized the event and made this so fantastic. Thanks so much. Hope to see you all again, and now wishing you a lovely, lovely, well, what is it, lunchtime, and a great summer day. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.